Hey, what's up, everyone? Brad Chmielewski here with episode 168 of Shatter the Vain. Oh man, there was like an insane amount of news this past week for Vainglory. Earlier we had the GankStars franchise, and then we learned of all the franchise spots for Vainglory. We had the Worlds announcement in Singapore. We had the Live Championships announcement in LA. We had the new patch. We had Reza get released. That it didn't seem like we were gonna get a hero. We were talking last week's episode about like it really wasn't any news about a hero, and then the patch came out on Tuesday instead of the typical Wednesday. Very strange. I don't know why that happened still, unless it was because there was other announcements that were happening, people were unavailable on Wednesday. I don't know all the inner workings of why it was moved or what could happen. Or it wasn't really moved, it was just surprising that it was on a Tuesday instead of a Wednesday. They're keeping me on my toes. I thought I had this all figured out for hero releases and when patches drop, but yeah, they're messing things up here, or changing things up. But it's really cool. I got BrutalTurtle joining me on this episode to talk about all these changes in the updates, because he's now an analyst for EchoFox, so he's definitely really deep into the numbers and all these changes and thoughts and where the meta's going and the items you should pick up. So it's really cool to hear his opinions on what's happening in this update. And then we talk about how he got into Vainglory, his time with GankStars, and the competitive scene. Really awesome story at the beginning of the podcast here, so definitely listen to that. I love hearing everyone's story and just like why and how they play this game. So very exciting. Before we jump in this episode, I want to mention the Patreon page. That's over at patreon.com/shatterthevain. If you can support the show, that would be awesome. We're 168 episodes in, kicking them out every week. Yeah, I don't think I've missed a week in a long time. There was a delay a couple weeks ago, but yeah, every week they're coming out. So if you can support it, that'd be great. But you can support it by just subscribing, listening. Tell your friends if they're a podcast fan. Check out the show too, and leave a review on iTunes. I love reading those. I love seeing those. It takes just a few seconds. So thank you everyone who's been watching, supporting in all the ways possible. If it's Patreon or just retweeting on Twitter, that's fantastic too. Well, let's do it. Let's jump into 168.
Shatter the Vain.
This is the 168th episode of Shatter the Vain. My name is Brad Chmielewski, and it's a podcast all about Vainglory. Every week, try to break down the news, gameplay, game tips, and hopefully we can all become better players together. And every week, bringing in people from the community, people that love, play, support this game. And this week, I have BrutalTurtle joining me. Welcome.
Thank you. I'm very happy to be here.
Yeah, good to have you here. If people haven't heard of your name or know who you are, you want to give them a little introduction of just who you are and what you're about.
So my name's BrutalTurtle. I've been playing Vainglory for about 2.5 years now. So I definitely know my way around the fold. I really pride myself in being community oriented when it comes to the game. I really love talking to players of all skill tiers, getting to know people, and collaborating on community projects. I'm 18 years old. I'm very passionate about Vainglory. As you can see through my past, I've been involved in competitive Vainglory, I want to say over a year now, maybe a year and a half. It was a little semi-competitive before that, but yeah, I've been doing VIS since it started, and that's been really, really cool. I'm currently on EchoFox as an analyst. Previously, I was on GankStars as a sub for Split 1 of this season, and that was pretty amazing. That covers the majority of it. I'm very active on Twitter. If you ever want to chat or want to learn something new about Vainglory, feel free to reach out to me. I'm a very open person.
Yes, I want to talk about the GankStars and EchoFox thing a little bit, but first, like, how'd you get into Vainglory? If we step back a little bit, were you playing other MOBAs, or were you just Vainglory, like a mobile gamer?
Yeah, I was very much a mobile gamer. I had an iPad, actually. The only reason I had the iPad is my parents had purchased it for me for school. I quickly explored the mobile game market and realized there was a lot more fun to be discovered. I was the kind of person I was very grateful for having a 64 gigabyte iPad too, because
Yeah, okay.
it allowed me to download whatever I wanted as soon as I saw it on the App Store. So I remember getting Vainglory as soon as it was released. I'd never played a MOBA before, and I'll be honest, I was not a fan of the MOBA style just because I hadn't explored into it. At that
Okay, sure.
the first time I downloaded it, I did the tutorial. This was like the old tutorial, so it wasn't wasn't very concise. Not nearly to the point of the new tutorial, that's for sure.
Mhm.
I loved the graphics. I loved the heroes. I just didn't know enough about MOBAs to kind of get into it. So I stepped back. A couple months later, my neighbors, who I used to mobile game with a lot, reintroduced me into Vainglory, and they kind of gave me the motivation to play because it brought in that community aspect where I could
Yeah.
compete and play with them, and that was really something special. So I remember, I think my first game ever was actually on Arden. I had no clue what was going on, but I absolutely loved it because I was with my friends. I'm walking around the map. I remember the gauntlet was like the craziest thing for me. I could not figure out what it was. I just loved throwing it down.
Oh,
But yeah, I
that's
quickly grew and
that's pretty
grew.
awesome that you could play with people like next door and nearby. Like you guys,
Yeah,
what,
it was
just got
super cool.
together and kind of played?
Yeah, so I'm really grateful for them having the game. We still play after all this time together. And yeah, it was super enjoyable. And it kind of gave me a baseline to grow from. I remember my friend was like a scarf maiden, and I had no glory. So I was like always aspiring to unlock scarf. Just because I always thought like if they cost more, they must be better.
Right. Okay.
Just because I was so new to MOBAs. So I quickly learned that that was not the case. And Koshka and Ringo, despite being like 800 glory or something, were still very good. Actually, I held off on buying Ringo for probably like a year of playing, even though he cost near to nothing, just because I didn't want a cheap hero.
Well, he was also always free in the like hero rotation in
Yes, he
that
was
like
for sure.
first year and a half. I think that was just a long running joke I had where it's like you never needed to buy Ringo. There would
It's
never be a
very true.
time where you needed to.
You're 100% right with that.
So then, did you end up as you got into the competitive scene? Did you kind of get into it with them, or did you start to realize that there was this larger group on probably around that time? It was more line and on the forums, kind of
Yeah,
hanging out and talking.
yeah. So the way that it started for me is so we played a ton together. This was before there was even rank Q. So
Yeah.
I got up to tier 4. This was actually I think this is probably the funniest thing is me and my friends had no clue how the tier system worked. So we thought that the lower the number, the better you were.
Okay.
So my friend was tier 2 and I was tier 4. And there was no like elo bar at the time or anything. It was just like it displayed your tier. And
Right. Yeah.
I was so impressed by him being tier 2 and me being stuck in tier 4. But yeah, so we played a bunch together. That was very casual for us. It was just kind of get together, have some fun. I'm very grateful for Vision. That was my first guild I really ever joined, like my first true guild.
Okay.
I'd made some friends through playing. I was the kind of person to add every single person I played with. So I'm still crippled with a 500 plus friend list after 2.5 years of trying to remove friends every time I get online. I have, yeah, I've got a ton of people on there, but it gave me a ton of people to play with. Eventually, with the release of guilds, I really wanted to get into one that was really booming. It had a lot of activity. I got accepted into the Vision Guild. And for me, that changed a lot. It really revolutionized like my gameplay. Because I was put with all these other players who had similar interests in Vainglory, who had this amazing community aspect where all of us, we were very, very tight knit. That's for sure. Like I knew everybody's name. I knew everything about their lives because we were just very close friends. And that was
That's
really
awesome.
cool. Yeah, it was by far like the best community experience I've had to date. And I was there for quite a long time. I remember I hit like 100,000 fame there and I was really happy about that. But it just was really cool. So we talked a lot. We were using Kick originally, and then we switched over to Band.
Okay.
And we also had Discord on the side just for chatting. And we had like these fun game nights and everything. And that's really what I began to love. I quickly decided to form a team out of that with the guys that I really enjoyed playing with. So we stayed together for quite a long time. I remember our team actually like in game had like 500, 600 wins.
Oh wow, that's
Just
crazy
from
to see now. Even now, I don't think the teams end up playing that much together.
yeah, we played all the time and we enjoyed it. We were really, really close. So it was cool. And like I really got to know the guys well. We still stay in touch, even though a few of them parted from the game just through different life circumstances. But yeah, like I've always loved that competitive team aspect, working together to improve. Like I improved significantly faster working with that team. That's for sure.
Nice. Okay. And
But
then
yeah,
so was that the team you were kind of doing the VIS and kind of those or the
so
VGL
that's
at that time?
yeah. At the time, it was there was like the amateur series, so we did like the amateur series twice, in hopes of getting to the live event. We didn't nearly make it that far, but we still had a blast doing it and
Nice.
practicing for it. And then the roster evolved a little bit, and that led into the first team I competed with in VIS, which was super super cool because the way that they'd reformatted the structure at the time made VIS like really hot stuff at the time. Everybody was supporting you. Everybody was watching the games. You had all your friends cheering you on, and it just was. It really brought me that like adrenaline rush that I loved from like playing sports when I was younger. It had that really cool competitive aspect. I consider myself a pretty competitive person.
Okay.
So it was neat to compete against all these people and really make a name for myself with time. Actually, my first true VIS, at the time, there were a ton of teams applying, so it was pretty hard to get in because of the new format. It was top 32 teams then. And so my team didn't make it in split 1. Split 2, we finally made it in. We were the 31st seed, and we had to go against the second seed. And we actually beat the second seed and knocked them out in our first round of like true competitive play, because the amateur series was a lot more teams competing, so it wasn't really the same skill level. There was no seeding.
Okay.
But yeah, that was like huge for us because
Nice.
we saw people on Twitter like Sui Generis tweeting about it, and for us, it was like, oh my gosh, we really did something here. We were like 3 POA silvers who beat a VG silver team, and like at the time there were not many VG silvers. That's for sure. So yeah, like that was something really really special for us. It was like a bit of like a Cinderella story. We ended up doing decently well at that VIS, and I really got hooked to competitive play through that. And I just wanted to keep getting better and better and show other people like that I had potential to really achieve these goals, because there definitely were like everybody has some number of haters per se. I wouldn't necessarily say they hated me. It was just they didn't believe that I had the potential to really become good. And so I think that really fueled me because I wanted to prove everybody wrong with that.
Right. Well,
no matter what I was.
The top players can be there can be a little bit of a click going on if
That's true.
when you come in from an outside and especially dethrone someone like that, you're like, who is this person? And I don't know.
Who are these random? Yeah, no, that's for sure. It's the competitive community doesn't invite a lot of new people into their circles, so it was definitely very hard for me to work my way up to where I am right now, especially for Vainglory being my first MOBA.
Yeah.
It took a lot of work.
Cool. And then so from there, then there's the most recent time you run GankStars here during the first split of the summer.
Yeah.
How did that go? You were just the sub, right?
Yes.
Okay.
So that was super super cool because I had been involved in like competitive, semi-competitive play. It depends what you kind of classify VIS. There's definitely a bunch of amazing players there, but this is definitely a whole other tier once you're put in the pro circuit. And I'm really grateful for Pont and Iraqi for giving me that opportunity, because it really opened my eyes to what like true competitive professional Vainglory play was like. Okay. It was super cool because like I was able to watch and spectate in on these scrims. I even played in a bunch against like other top VG8 teams, and so that's something you don't see in rank Q really. Like it's a whole other level of thought process and play, and so I really got to know the guys pretty well, especially Vains and Iraqi, and even Viziox, their analyst. He's a really great kid. He's very, very bright. And so being able to see what he was doing with GankStars, with working on the drafts and helping them prep some comps and different strategies, doing different calculations. They've got a fantastic analyst team over at GankStars, that's for sure. I really started to see that maybe that could be a route that would work out for me a little better than a sub route. So I live on the East Coast. I live actually up north in Canada. I live in Ontario, near Toronto.
Okay.
And so for me, I have a lot of leg, that's for sure. Like my MS ranges from like 120 to 150 on a good day.
Okay.
So it definitely brings its hindrances and its struggles. Like Iraqi spoke of it often because he travels. He also is from Toronto, and he travels to like Los Angeles, where the team is right now for the team house. So he really sees the differences, and like I can tell there's definitely something wrong when I'm playing on such high MS, because it limits my hero pool. Like I really turned to jungling originally because I really struggle with weapon power heroes because of the stutter step speed. It just doesn't work well with my MS. So jungling worked out for me because the meta's all been crystal heroes. Like even in the past before that, I always played Scarf. Like I swear there was one patch where I only played Scarf. He wasn't even good in the meta. This was the one where Black Feather and Sky were super strong.
Okay.
I just picked it every single game because I love the hero. So yeah, like CP heroes have been kind of like my restraint. Like that's where I've had to really focus. And so I'm definitely limited with what I can accomplish there. So I kind of thought that would be best for me to turn towards maybe like an analyst type position.
Okay. Was there talks of you going out to LA because they recently got this
Yes.
house, or they're in this gaming complex? I don't know the exact term you want to call it, but they're in this new location. So there was talks of you trying to come out there.
Yeah. So originally the plan was for me to fly out. There were some complications that kind of occurred. Like personal issues, which resulted in me unable to go, which was unfortunate, but it really isn't the end of the world. There's a lot of other amazing opportunities here, and I've been grateful for EchoFox for one. But yeah, that's kind of what stopped me from moving forward with competitive is like the level of play and the practice hours that those guys put in. Like I really, really respect that. Like GankStars, they're a very, very hardworking team. Nothing comes easy to them, but they work very hard to achieve their goals. And like that's really essential for any pro sport or pro esport. Like the hours they're putting into something that I wouldn't be able to play during the school year. So if I'm aspiring to be a pro player and I know that in the end I can't sustain that once I am there, I thought that would be best kind of to move to another position that I think I'd be good at. There's some talks with GankStars about maybe becoming an analyst there. But I decided that it would be best if we parted ways for now. Maybe in the future, I'll go back and collaborate with GankStars because I really love the guys over there. And yeah, so that's kind of how I ended up where I am now. I learned a lot while I was at GankStars, even though it was such a short period of time, just a lot about the pro scene for one, as well as a lot about pro play and like analysis in terms of what it really takes to be like the best of the best. So I'm really like grateful for that and the opportunities that I was given there because like it really helped shape where I am right now.
Yeah. So are you liking this analyst role more than being a competitive player?
I'll be honest, I absolutely love it. And I wasn't really expecting that because like I've been trying for so long to become like a professional player. Like that was the only option I saw at the time. Like I was very narrow-sighted about that. But now that I can see that I can have an impact on pro players in a different way and still be a part of the team, I think it's very unique. So I mentioned before, I've got those restrictions with my MS. That kind of deterred me a little bit, but also I've got university coming up. So I was restricted with my hours of play. So I knew that if I was going to stay as a player, it would definitely be as a sub. And what I love about competitive play, I don't really get as a sub. And that's like the intense competition of being in any VIS or VG8 match is I just love like the rush and the intense
the adrenaline high.
Exactly. And the supporters and everything. And you don't really feel that as a sub because you just don't get to play naturally. Like maybe you'll get one game in, but yeah, so the other alternative was to take a management position or like an analyst position. And so Slow Dead reached out to me after I left GankStars. He's been a great supporter of mine for a very long time, way back when he was working with Noble Pro and had the Noble Pro guild. I was in there for a while, and he treated me very well, him in 6s and 7s. So I was very thankful for him reaching out to me. We chatted on Discord with me and Slada and him, and from there they moved forward, and I got this awesome analyst position, which I've got right now. So I thought it was like my initial thoughts of becoming an analyst was I was a little hesitant because I did some analyst work while I was at GankStars, but I wasn't sure if it was going to be something that I loved because there's so much that I don't know, in a sense. Like, I didn't know the team. I didn't know what I was really going into because I haven't had many social experiences with the players specifically.
Okay.
But they never cease to amaze me. Like, this team, the EchoFox roster right now, the guys are really incredible. They're very, very hard workers. Very much like GankStars, is they've got that passion to really bring it to the next step. Hence their amazing performance in VIS this season, is they worked super hard to get to where they are right now. Didn't drop a single game that whole split, which is like really incredible to think about. Like, I'm super, super proud of the roster. They listen, they work hard, they respect me and everything that I say, and it's really a pleasure to work with them. They're a spectacular roster, and I really see them going far with what they're doing now.
I guess that's a good spot. Like, we've seen them struggle a little bit prior to, I guess, this new team, and then they've been stepping it up, but they just haven't been able to like compete with those VG8 teams yet or get back in there. So what are your thoughts on that for maybe the next split? Do you think they're gonna break through again?
I really think they've got what it takes to break through and get back into the VG8. I definitely I have no doubt about their potential and their current strength. They put in a ton of hours every single day. Like, my first break since joining the team has been the past 2 days, since we've kind of been celebrating since the end of VIS and our successes with that. I wouldn't call it a full break. I'm still doing some analyst work, but the taking
some extra hour of sleep here and there. Bro.
Yes, that's for sure. But yeah, I think that them dropping out of VG8 isn't necessarily a bad thing. I think it really opened their eyes to what it really takes to be the best of the best. Okay. And sometimes that's like an essential learning opportunity. So I guess that's a perfect example of how learning from a loss can really grow a team. I think that when they hit VG8, they're going to be a completely new team. They've totally evolved even since when I joined. Like, it's incredible to see how fast they've grown as a roster.
Okay.
And like, it's just super cool to be a part of them and their growth and their experiences as a team. And it's super, like, adding Selena Gomez to the roster helped target some of the issues that they had before. Selena's like an unbelievable player. Some of the plays he was making in VIS like made my jaws drop. It's just the whole roster is spectacular. I have a lot of respect for them, and they treat me really well as an analyst, and that's something that's really important for anybody looking to take like a managerial type position or an analyst or coaching spot. Is if the players respect you and respect your thoughts and your opinions, like, there's really nothing that can stop you guys from going to the top once you start putting in the hours. And like, right now, EchoFox has everything going for them. The whole roster, like, they work very hard for all their goals. They listen. They're really bright guys, and it's just spectacular to be a part of all of it.
Nice, yeah. You touched on the idea like that you don't necessarily have to be a competitive player to make an impact on the competitive scene. Like, I think GankStars has been doing a great job with this, trying to like cultivate this group of people. Like, you could be a designer or a social media person, an editor, an analyst, and just kind of also have that same impact. You forget when you play a game, like, there's only so many pros, but they need help being the pro, like a coach and things like that. So I think that's a good thing for anyone that's thinking of being in the competitive scene. Like, you don't have to be a player.
No, it's like a big puzzle. Everybody has their contributions to it. If you're missing a puzzle piece, you're not going to have the big picture. So yeah, like anybody in the community really has the opportunity to make some sort of difference. This is the first time, like even though competing in VIS, like I feel like I'm having some sort of major difference with the team, and it's spectacular. Like I feel like I'm having some great impact here, and the guys are spectacular. Like I really love doing this job and having this opportunity. And if you asked me a year ago if I'd be an analyst, I probably would have said no. But I think that the community is really opening up and showing the potential of really anybody in the community who wants to make an impact. There is somewhere, some sort of space that you can definitely do that no matter your skill set. You just kind of have to seek the opportunities. And right now, there's no shortage of opportunities, that's for sure. Like many teams now are trying to look for new analysts, new coaches. And you spoke about GankStars. They're spectacular with their full community aspect. With everything that they do, is they really care about Vainglory as a whole, and the full scene here, competitive and community. So having them and seeing everything that they're doing here is amazing too.
So what's it take to be an analyst for one that's maybe listening that doesn't know? You mentioned like drafting, but there's so much more to it than that,
there's
right?
definitely a lot. So every analyst is different with what they bring to the table. For me, because I have this background in competitive play, is I have a wide array of skill set that I can bring. So because I'm very familiar with the game, I help a lot with different gameplay strategies to start. On top of that, I do basically every single draft with the help of Derek for their scrims. And there's a lot of scrims. Trust me on that. They really put in the hours. And then on top of that, I do VOD reviews with them. I prepare the drafts with Derek for their competitive games. We spectate the games and we try and create some sort of analysis based off of it. We take notes on everything. Anything that we can really do to help the team, we try and do. We do tons of calculations. So if you're the kind of person who loves math or feels that they're very skilled in that area or programming, there's definitely a place for you on almost any team looking to build up their analysts, because there's a lot to Vainglory that you don't necessarily see at the surface in terms of calculations. Like you can really do a lot in terms of finding the best builds, finding the best build paths, finding different rotations. Like everything in Vainglory, there are restrictions with time. For one, a lot of people forget about the timer at the top of your screen. It's not just when the Kraken spawns. It also can be used for tracking jungle rotations, for tracking different movement on the map, different opportunities that you could take. So it's just kind of, we bring a different level of play to the team to help their growth. So I think that's the core of it. For what I do, at least, is like every team is kind of different with their interactions with their analysts, but there's definitely a lot that analysts can bring that players just don't have the time kind of to figure out and need some guidance on. Like any professional team, you look at hockey, for example, the NHL, it's not just the players who are sitting on the bench. You've got the coach, you've got the managers, you've got a full team behind them who are trying to find strategies to kind of counter opponents, for one. Like you see that in Vainglory too, is every team you face, they have specific strategies that they lean towards. They have specific heroes that they're strongest on. And so analysts can really do that research to figure out how to best go about beating them and really taking them down, which is pretty cool.
Yeah. And when a new update like this week came out, like your job is just like, I guess it amplifies for a little bit as all the changes happen. And I think that's a great segue into some of the news and just talk about the update here that happened this past week.
Vainglory News.
With the update, nothing's getting stale, that's for sure. It's a plethora of changes. You've got the item changes, everything going on. So yeah, it definitely brings a lot of change for me as an analyst in terms of different counters, different builds. Yeah, there's definitely a lot, and we've been trying to stay on top of that.
Yeah, and one of the, I guess, I love when a new hero gets added to the game.
Yeah.
That's like, I think most players, people that enjoy playing the game like that, because it just really shakes things up. And Reza was announced basically the day before this patch drop. So I know I was kind of questioning if we were going to see a hero this time.
Yeah.
And then he kind of came out of nowhere, which was, I guess, cool. And also, we didn't have the hype for him a little bit. So it was a little sad there.
Yeah, that's true. I can agree with you on that one. I didn't exactly have the same experience because like I've started testing a lot more on PBE
Okay.
to try and lessen this jump when the new patch comes out.
That makes sense.
There's definitely a lot that I can't account for before the patch is released because we just have such a small sample of games and testers. Once you release it for everybody, there's so much more that is discovered and unveiled with evolving metas, and it's amazing to see.
Right. Yeah, I try to jump on there sometimes, but I don't want it to taint or accidentally slip anything that I've seen on there come out on the podcast. So I'm very careful of what I say about the PB. Yeah, it's tough. But yeah, let's run through this new hero skills a little bit and talk about what you've seen with him so far. So his, those are his talents, right? So he has a pretty neat kit. It's all about fire and bursting people down. His heroic perk is called Firestarter. Two of his abilities apply Firestarter to enemy targets. Reza's basic attacks consume Firestarter, dealing crystal damage. Then his A is one of those abilities that do add Firestarter. It's called Scorcher. Reza smashes the ground, creating this fiery shockwave in front of him. Scorcher deals damage to anything it passes through and collides with first enemy hero or a large minion hit. And this can go pretty far, like it has a pretty nice distance on it. His B is called Troublemaker. Reza dashes to a location, dealing damage to enemies he passes through. Reza's next basic attacks deal bonus crystal damage. This ability has 2 charges, so you can use it again, and then it kind of resets. And then his ultimate is called Netherform Detonator. And what happens here is Reza vanishes, then reappears at a target location in an empowered demon form. Upon reappearing, he unleashes a blazing explosion, damaging minions and consuming the Firestarter. That ultimate took me some time to figure out because I thought I decided kind of like Idris, all right, I can come out now, but you have to get used to the timing on this. What have you seen, or what are you kind of looking at in this kit so far? I actually haven't seen much of Reza getting played, especially in ranked, even though he did get like a buff within like 2 days of getting released.
So
I played him the day of, and I was like, man, this guy kind of is weak. What happened here?
yeah, he's very unique with his kit. He brings a lot to the table in terms of what he does best. He's definitely something players are going to have to get used to because he's got a unique fight strategy. He kind of reminds me of Rhyme because of the way that you want to chain your abilities and basic attacks, like a spell weaver.
Yeah.
But he is definitely much faster and much more mobile. So
and squishier, yeah.
Yes, he is very squishy. So the main build that I've been seeing right now is Aftershock, Broken Myth, Eve of Harvest, and that seems to be working pretty well after the new buff.
Okay.
I definitely think the buff was necessary from what I was seeing that first day, and I think that was a good call for SEMC and Vainglory. I don't know if the buff was too much. I still have a little bit of time to figure that out. If we go back to like a hero like Baron, when he was first released, nobody was playing him because they thought that he just was super easy to counter. And I think that's kind of a common trend we see. Idris, when he was released, nobody was playing him. It's very rare that people like catch on and say somebody's broken, but when they do, the community goes crazy. Take Lyra, for example. Right. She definitely had her counters when she was released. She definitely was strong too. So it'll just kind of take some time for everybody to figure out where he places in the meta and if they want to play him into different heroes. For me, it's pretty hard to predict what heroes he will counter. He seems pretty good in terms of bursting, so I definitely think that he's the kind of hero you'd want to play into some other squishy targets.
Right.
So if you're facing some sort of double range, double squishy comp, maybe try a Reza out there. But it's still super early. I think the coolest thing about metas is you've got a full patch in which there are no changes. I guess this is a slight example because it was a hotfix change. But even then, the meta after the first week is not the meta after the second week, or the meta after the third week. Even though nothing has changed, it's just people are finding different ways to go about countering different heroes. If we go to last patch, I think towards the end of it, Catherine was really starting to make a spike in terms of her strength. People originally were just really prioritizing Grace and Baron. As time went on, people were like, okay, we can play Lyra into Baron. We can play some Catherine into Grace, stun her out of her heals. And that's just a perfect example of how the meta evolves. And we're going to see it here once again. People are going to stick to probably last patch's meta for the first few days. A few people are going to start playing some Reza, maybe find some place he fits. People are going to start using some new builds. We saw pretty big nerf to Tension Bow and Poison Shiv. I still think Tension Bow is very, very good, though. It's actually super strong, despite the changes. That's just a little FYI for anybody else who's watching. Don't be scared to build a Tension Bow still.
Well, what? Just armor pierce down, basically 2%. It's not that much.
It's really not that much, yeah. Poison Shiv, on the other hand, that one took a pretty solid hit. But yeah, so it's really hard for me to say where this meta will go, what path it'll take. I think it's really up to the players. Same with how you've got different regions who play different metas, which is super cool when it comes to Unified. But yeah, I think that he's got a lot of potential, especially with the buff. People just have to find a way to draft him and fit him in there to fulfill his potential.
Yeah, talking about items, we are seeing a lot of like echoes and no waves kind of come back out now because of their increased cooldown for echo and the decreased cost for no wave. I think people are like, oh, these items are good now.
Yeah, echo is something special. When I was testing it on PvE, I built echo on almost every hero. But then again, I was playing heroes which echo could work well on. Okay. I got pretty into playing some CP Saw on there. It's pretty cool now with the echo cooldown to take the route of an echo instead of some sort of cooldown like a clockwork. You run in, you shank, you use your suppressing fire, you tap that echo, you go shank, you use your suppressing fire, then you go shank, and you're done your combo.
Oh man, okay.
So
I'm gonna have to try that after we're done recording here.
I definitely recommend giving that a shot. I was running Shatterglass Broken Myth Echo on him, and it was definitely very fun. But I see it making a boom on a lot of supports now. Last patch towards the end, people were starting to use a little bit of Echo in competitive play on different supports. I was seeing it on some Lyra, which is actually pretty brilliant for some double bulwarks or some double heals. And now with the changes, it just makes it that much more viable. A lot of people think that with Echo, the only time you'd want to use it is for an ability with a long cooldown. That's definitely not true. Sure, it's great if you've got a CP Ringo and you're double alting just because the length of the alt cooldown. But you can even look for applications on heroes like Lance. I was looking at the stun lengths the other day. You'd be better off if you can practice with the Echo and time stuff better. You can opt for an Echo over a Shatterglass on heroes like Lance right now, and it's pretty good. Like the stuff you can combo. You throw out those double Githian walls, and there's not that much cooldown between the next Echo charge that you've got. You may go into a fight and may turn south, and you may have it start off with a double Githian wall, say something doesn't go right. Your Echo may be up in time, so you can double combat roll your way out.
Yeah, okay.
Which is something pretty cool to see. So that I definitely think Echo is more of a utility item than one for a Crystal Hero, but Saw might be that exception, even though I don't see a lot of Saw coming into play. I did enjoy that. But yeah, I love the buff on it. I definitely think it was necessary. But there are some other things that need to be toned down because now we've got a menacing Catherine that's running through the meta with the combinations of her best items being buffed with that Echo and the null wave. So yeah, I expect to see a lot of Catherine this patch and expect to see both of those items played a lot more, especially on supports.
And then Baron got a little bit of a nerf, do you think that was enough? I'm still seeing him banned like almost every game, at least I'm in, and people are still afraid of this guy. Like going from weapon damage from 130 to 120, didn't seem like that much. It didn't seem like he got that big of a hit.
So one thing with Baron is I think people just need to learn how to counterplay him more. So like last patch, if you kind of watch over some of the EchoFox games, is we weren't all too worried about Baron despite his strength, just because we
Okay.
were able to draft against it and play against it. Baron definitely has a very weak early game with his slow move speed, and he struggles against heroes that can hard engage on top of him, such as like an Idris or a Blackfeather or a Taka. Or especially a Lyra. Lyra's kind of rise to fame last patch was as a counter to Baron.
Okay.
But I think now he was toned. I don't. It's too early to say if it was enough or if it was even too much. To be honest, I think he is cool because of what he brings to the game. Is he's a super late game scaling laner.
Right.
Pretty weak early, so you got to take advantage of that. Pressure the lane. Maybe go with like a Samuel or something. Try and harass. Anything to shut him down now. I think now armor might be a more viable counter than it was before. I would opt for like a Slumbering Husk previously. I'm gonna have to look into that a little more.
Okay.
But yeah, like Slumbering Husk is a great item. I think that's super underrated as well. Despite it not getting any changes, I think it's really great if you want to go like I like pairing it with like a reflex block and going like a 2-item build, get your 3 offense. But just stuff like that. I think that he still has a place in the meta. I don't know if he is too meta and too strong.
Okay.
Only time will tell with that. But I definitely feel that his counters should be prominent enough to keep him under control.
And
I
it
think
could be like a lot. I know people in different tiers have issues with a hero like Saw, where
definitely
then as you move up, you don't
you
see him because people know how to
never see
play against them. So
100%.
maybe Baron is still too new, and everyone hasn't been like, oh yeah, I just play this guy into him and we win. So you
Yeah,
can't pick him.
Grumpjaw is a great example of that last patch. Like I really didn't see much of him at all in top tier ranked play. Almost never. But then I talked to my friends in POA and they'd be seeing him banned away nearly every single game. Uh,
Hmm.
and I think that's just kind of cool as well. Is when Vainglory is doing their balancing, they really have to take in account everyone. It's not just the pros, and that's something people often forget about. Is there's definitely a large player base with different skill sets. Like a hero like Cruel, he definitely got a buff, and I feel like that's going to be tough for the lower tiers because I remember him being a menace when I was in lower tiers, but as I got up, that kind of disappeared. But
Yeah,
yeah,
I've been seeing a lot of Cruel over the last couple of days. So he seems so fast now with that Dead Man's
I
Rush cooldown.
I
It's like,
think
dude, what? How are you?
you're definitely very right with that. I think he's going to start making more of an appearance in competitive play. There was a decent amount of him even last patch appearing with a Grace combo. If we want to talk about Grace quickly, I think that her nerf on her really balances her out right now. If you look at the heals, is they're not even close to where they were before, unless you're building like a Shatter Glass.
Okay.
So no, like Echo really doesn't work too well on them. Like if you heal somebody twice with an Echo, it probably adds up to 1 heal from last patch. So people shouldn't be as afraid of Grace as they were. I don't think they should be as afraid of Baron either. Just look for those counter picks. Keep them in mind during the draft because I definitely see people still going for them. Just draft around it and work around it. I know not everybody has access to the draft. Uh,
Right.
which is kind of unfortunate, but hopefully people at that tier can't bring Baron to their full potential.
Cool. Well, I highly suggest anyone like make sure you go through and read the patch notes and just kind of, especially the heroes that maybe you play a lot of, just so you know where they are and what everyone else is kind of where they're at and who you should be worried for. It's always good. Go
Yeah,
read
that's
patch
a great
notes.
habit to get used to.
Yeah, every time, yeah, they come out, just figure it out, and then play all the heroes at least once. Go in casuals and see how they're feeling. Like that just helps
Definitely.
you get an idea of it. Then, so also in the news, GankStars. We're talking a lot about them early on in the podcast, but they've been making quite a bit of noise lately. And one of those is they recently joined this tech accelerator, this Verizon Media Tech Ventures, and so there's a TechCrunch article in the show notes if anyone wants to read that. But basically, it's kind of like incubator that you see a lot of startups do, and it's just a way like GankStars is kind of partnering with Verizon in a way, getting some funding to help do other things. I think Verizon is very interested in the mobile esports space, being a mobile company, and I guess a digital company, a digital content company as well. So this is a really interesting and a great opportunity for GankStars. So yeah, check that out. And then we talked about their franchise. They announced they got a franchise spot a week and a half ago. So there's a big announcement about that. And then like a day or two later, Sue Generous found on the Vainglory esports site that there was news of all the franchise people up there. And so there's a link of that in the show notes. Was there any surprises that you saw on this list?
I went through it, and it's hard to say because there really weren't all too many franchise spots given out. I think everybody was a good candidate for it, like all the top any org associated with VG8. Yeah, I was a little surprised with a few, like maybe Cloud9. I guess it's more a matter of what does the franchise spot really get you.
Right.
Just seeing as they're an organization which definitely has a lot of money, maybe it would be better used for somebody who is more community grown. That's why I think it's amazing that GankStars got that. They're definitely very deserving of it. I don't know if I saw Hammers on there, but I think that's one I would have liked to have seen if it's not on there.
Hammers wasn't on there, and
Yeah.
Tribe Gaming was.
Tribe was, yeah. That was a little surprising to me as well. Just seeing how they are relatively new as an organization. It definitely grew very fast, but I think that's a result of Chief Pat's following, which is great. Like I'm really happy for the Tribe guys. But yeah, then it kind of all goes back to what does that like really mean for them? Like what does the franchise spot really get you? And yeah, I think Hammers would have been a great candidate for them, seeing all their impact they've had in the community. I think if they were interested in it and they were looking for it, they would have been a great fit.
Right. Yeah. We don't know everything you get on it. I know you do get some money to help afford players, because otherwise, someone like TSM, they can pay the most, and
Yeah,
they will always have the best players because they'll be like, "Hey, here's more money than this other guy, no problem." And if
100%.
Tribe comes in and like, "Oh well, we just started, we have no money."
Yeah, yeah. You definitely want a fair balance in the pro scene. I think there's enough pro players right now that even if you put the best of the best together, the other guys would be able to work hard enough to overcome or at least catch up. Right now, we're really seeing like a stalemate with the top two. Even though there have been some losses and some upsets, I still feel like TSM and Cloud9 are definitively the top two in North America.
Right.
The other teams have to do some work to catch up. They just have some raw talent, and they put the hard work in as well. But I can see some upsets occurring. Like I think Hammers really startled us in the second split, starting all over, really coming online here, and showing his true potential as a player.
Yeah. Well, check out this. There wasn't a big announcement or anything, which I'm kind of, I guess, a little sad. I feel like it's more interesting than maybe some people feel like it is, but I feel like it's kind of a big deal, a franchise system. And yeah, but there's just a page up now, so check that out. Bigger news for Super Evil Megacorp, though, is they got another $19 million in funding from investors. And from this post, it sounds like this really wasn't any new investors. It was old people that had already invested in Super Evil Megacorp, like just doubling down kind of thing. Like, yeah, we believe in what you're doing. Keep it up. $19 million. Man, that's quite a bit.
Someone please invest that in me.
Yeah, I will gladly take that.
I think that's amazing. Like reading through the article too, I think there was some mention of maybe Super Evil Megacorp developing another game using their evil engine, which is interesting to think about, but also worries me a little bit because you definitely don't want them to split their resources too much and then Vainglory to plateau. Like I think right now we're really growing. We're seeing more advertisements, which the players are asking for. We're seeing like we've got new heroes, we've got huge patch updates, we got the addition of talents a little while back. I'm kind of addicted to talents, I'll be honest.
Okay, nice.
But yeah, I think it's definitely great that they got the money they needed if they want to take down like Honor of Kings once they come to North America. That's definitely has to be a concern for any pro player.
Yeah,
Because
I
once they get here, it's like, I don't know. It's really hard to say. They've got the money, they've got the advertising ability. We definitely don't want Vainglory to get phased out, seeing as it is a better game.
yeah, and I don't think they would go into build a new game at this point. I bet there's somebody that did probably dabble around with testing stuff, but even like Riot Games with League of Legends, they haven't really put out another game. They put out like a tabletop game, but being Riot Games, they haven't put something else out either. So
Yeah,
I
that's
think
true.
you got to focus on your main thing, otherwise
Definitely.
you won't be there. Cool. Uh, and then two more announcements this week. Man, it was a big news week. We
Oh,
got
it really
news
was.
of the live championships and Vainglory World. So the live championships is going to be September 8th through the 10th, the weekend after Labor Day. So we're about a month away from that, and that's out in LA again this time. I guess I'm kind of disappointed it wasn't. I'm glad it's back in the U.S., but I wish it would have been somewhere else because it was in L.A. The previous time at the Chinese theater. I guess that was Worlds, but I feel like a New
I'm
York one would have
thinking
been nice.
that the reason they took that route is just because of their servers right now. Like,
Okay.
I don't see any way that they could do it on the East Coast, but I'd absolutely love an East Coast event.
Yeah.
Uh, and it would be nice, definitely, to see them branching out from like their home area, uh, with California and everything. It'd be nice to place it somewhere else. I definitely agree with that. Especially for the EchoFox team with all the guys living in Los Angeles and the
Yeah.
whole area. It was like, oh, we're traveling to Los Angeles. Myself, on the other hand, it'll be a cool experience.
Cool.
Uh,
So you'll be out there.
yes,
Nice.
90% sure I'll be
Okay.
going, and that's super cool for me because like I think the one of my favorite Vainglory experiences was actually the Toronto meetup we held back in June with Iraqi there, and it was really cool because I made so many friends out of Vainglory. And to get to meet just a handful of them in real life and have a fun day with them was really fun. Like it was amazing, and like I really encourage other people to try and get together with some other pals who they know play in their area and host some sort of meetup. So live finals would be very cool because I've met so many people through Vainglory, and I've been restricted to talking with them over Discord, and just the opportunity to meet them in real life and my team too will be spectacular.
Yeah, I think going to an event or a meetup like this is just always great, and it's kind of fun to like, especially if you're someone that plays by Vainglory by yourself in your house or maybe with one other friend, like seeing like, oh, other people play this and it's not just me. It makes you feel a little better.
For sure. Yeah, it's
So
amazing to talk with other people who share similar passions.
Mhm. So yeah, grab if you can make it out to LA, grab a ticket. They just went up for sale, so you probably won't sell out here right away. And then a couple days before that, they announced Vainglory Worlds will happen in Singapore. They have not said the date. It's probably likely somewhere in December, but I know they probably have to be careful on this date because a lot of people from NA, those are North American holidays around that time, so traveling becomes a lot harder for people in this time. But being in Singapore is pretty awesome for the SEA community because that's kind of where they started. They're kind of like going back, and I think just reminding them that, hey, we care about you, kind of thing. It's not all about LA or NA and EU here. We pay attention to the SEA players and everyone else over there.
Yeah, I was really startled at that announcement. I was not anticipating that at all with the current trend. But yeah, I think it's amazing for the community there. Like they've got a huge population there playing Vainglory, and it would be a great opportunity for them to come to this incredible event. It'll be super cool for players to be able to travel out there, opposed to Los Angeles for the big community, which is really centered in California. But at least for North America, that is. But yeah, I think that's super cool. We just might run into some issues. I think this is unavoidable, though, with some of the younger players being able to travel.
But you need definitely a passport to get there and things like that. So
Yes.
stuff people don't think about, especially NA people don't always think about that.
Yeah.
Americans,
Yeah. We're still used to having it here.
Yeah. And then, so yeah, we don't know the date. There's been a lot of talk from like Nikki Tsunami and other people about like, what are they going to do about the time zone kind of thing? We're going to lose viewership here on the NA side because it's going to have to happen. So it'll be very late or extremely early if you're on the West Coast. Like, so that's, but you know, they have to deal with it the opposite way. So it's a trade-off. Like, I think you just have to be like, this is where it is this year. Maybe next year it'll be somewhere where you can watch it, you know, while you're eating lunch. So, cool. But yeah, check that out. Get ready. Start planning if you can make it out there. Well, that's going to do it for episode 168. Brutal Turtle, thank you for joining me. This was fantastic.
Thank you very much for having me. I had an absolute blast. I'd love to come back and do it again.
Yeah, where can people follow you, find you, if they have any other questions? What's the best place to hit you up?
The best way would probably be to connect with me on Twitter at BrutalTurtleVG, BrutalTurtle, then VG.
Cool.
I'd love to chat. My DMs are open. So feel free to hit me up if you ever need some advice related to Vainglory or anything else. I'm pretty friendly and open with anything.
Awesome, yeah. And
I don't bite.
And I'll include a link in the show notes so everyone can easily connect and find it that way. And then Shatter The Vain is on Twitter at Shatter The Vain. Website, shatterthevain.com. All the episodes get posted there, the iTunes, Stitcher, YouTube version as well. So check that out. And then I'll be back next week with 169. Take care.
Let's get this over with.